You didn't lose them. Allah created distance. And that difference matters more than you realize. Because if Allah wanted them gone, they would be gone. But instead, He left the feeling, the memory, the care, and removed only the closeness. Why? Because Allah does not test love with words, promises, or emotions. He tests it with space, with silence, with unanswered questions. Distance reveals what closeness hides. It shows whether your heart was resting in Allah or clinging to a person, whether what you felt was love or attachment wearing love's name. If this distance is hurting you, listen carefully. This is not punishment. This is purification. Allah is separating what is real from what is unhealthy. And by the end of this test, something will be clear. Either your heart will be free or your love will be proven. Stay with me. The distance didn't arrive with an explanation. It came quietly, almost politely, as if it didn't want to disturb you at first. One day, everything felt connected and alive, and the next, something invisible stood between you. No clear ending, no clear reason, just a space that wasn't there before. That kind of distance is the most confusing because it gives you nothing solid to hold or to release. It leaves the heart suspended between hope and uncertainty. And that suspension is where the mind begins to ache. You replay moments, searching for the exact second when everything changed. At first, you try to convince yourself it's temporary. You tell your heart that this space will close again, that things will return to how they were. You wait for a sign, a message, a moment that will explain everything, but the days pass and the distance stays. It becomes heavier not because it grows, but because it remains. The absence starts speaking louder than presence ever did, and slowly, confusion turns into restlessness. The heart doesn't understand why something that felt sincere now feels unreachable. You begin questioning yourself before you question Allah. You wonder if you said too much or not enough, if you moved too fast or too slowly. You dissect every word you remember, every silence you ignored before this distance appeared. The mind becomes a courtroom where you are both the accused and the judge. But no verdict brings peace. The confusion only deepens because the distance offers no answers. It simply exists, unbothered by your need for clarity. There is a unique pain in distance without closure. Loss can hurt, but distance confuses. Loss has an end point, but distance feels unfinished. It keeps the heart slightly open, unable to fully grieve or fully hope. You don't know whether to hold on or let go. And in that in-between space, emotions exhaust themselves. The heart feels tired, not from loving, but from not knowing where that love is allowed to go. As the distance stretches on, you start feeling something more unsettling than sadness. You feel displaced. Something that once had a place in your daily life no longer fits anywhere. Your routines feel interrupted. Your thoughts wander back to what was familiar, even when you try to focus on what is in front of you. Distance doesn't just remove people, it removes certainty. And the heart hates uncertainty more than it hates pain. You might find yourself reaching out in subtle ways, not to demand answers, but to reassure your own heart that the connection still exists. A small message, a quiet prayer, a remembered moment. But when nothing changes, the silence grows heavier. It begins to feel intentional, even if no one has said so. That realization hurts because it forces you to accept that this distance is not accidental. Something has been allowed to shift. At some point, you ask Allah directly, not with long words, but with a tired heart. You ask why something that felt meaningful now feels distant, why something that brought comfort now brings confusion. You may not even ask for it to return. You just ask to understand. But understanding does not come immediately. Instead, the distance remains, almost as if it is waiting for something inside you to move first. This is where many hearts misunderstand what is happening. They assume distance means rejection, or that it means something was never real. But Allah does not always remove things abruptly. Sometimes He creates space so the heart can see more clearly. Closeness can blur judgment. Distance sharpens perception. It allows you to observe what you were too emotionally involved to notice before. When distance enters, it exposes what you depended on without realizing it. It shows how much of your peace was tied to access, presence, and reassurance. You may notice that your mood rises and falls with the idea of reconnection. That discovery can be uncomfortable. It forces honesty, and honesty is rarely gentle at first. But Allah brings this awareness not to shame you, but to protect your heart from leaning where it should not lean. The confusion you feel is not weakness. It is the heart adjusting to a new reality it didn't choose. It is the discomfort of growth beginning. Allah often begins change by disturbing familiarity. What feels confusing now is actually a signal that something inside you is being rearranged. The heart is learning that not everything meaningful is meant to be held tightly. Distance also tests patience in a way closeness never could. When someone is near, patience feels optional. When someone is far, patience becomes necessary. You are forced to sit with your emotions instead of acting on them. You are forced to trust Allah without immediate evidence. This is where the heart begins to mature, even if it resists the process. As days turn into weeks, the confusion changes shape. It becomes quieter, heavier, more reflective. You stop asking why as loudly and start asking what instead. What is this distance revealing? What is it asking you to release? What is it teaching you about yourself? These questions mark a shift. The heart is slowly moving from panic to awareness. You may notice that the distance is exposing fears you didn't know you had. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being replaced, fear of not being chosen. These fears were always there, but closeness kept them hidden. Distance brings them to the surface, so they can be confronted. Allah does not heal what remains buried. He allows it to rise so it can be addressed. There is also a subtle dignity that distance invites, even when it hurts. You begin to realize that chasing clarity can cost you self-respect, that constantly reaching can drain your peace. Allah places distance to teach the heart restraint. Not everything that feels urgent deserves action. Sometimes the most powerful response is stillness. The confusion starts to soften when you accept that this distance was allowed, not random. Allah is too precise to be careless with hearts. If He allowed space to appear, it carries wisdom, even if that wisdom is not yet visible. Acceptance does not erase the pain, but it reduces the resistance. And reduced resistance makes room for peace. You might still miss what was. Missing does not mean you have failed the test. It means you are human. Allah does not demand emotional numbness. He asks for emotional alignment. There is a difference. The heart can feel and still submit. It can ache and still trust. Distance teaches that balance. Slowly, the confusion stops screaming and starts whispering. It no longer demands immediate answers. It asks for reflection. It asks for patience. It asks for reliance on Allah instead of outcomes. This is where the distance begins to serve its true purpose. The heart is being trained, not punished. You begin to understand that clarity does not always come through explanations. Sometimes it comes through endurance, through watching what survives when comfort is removed, through seeing what remains when access is taken away. Distance is a mirror, and what it reflects is not the other person, but you. The heart eventually realizes that it is still standing, still breathing, still capable of peace, even in absence. That realization is powerful. It breaks the illusion that your stability depended on someone else's presence. Allah allows this discovery so your heart becomes stronger, not harder. By the time you reach this point, The distance no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a difficult teacher, one that spoke in silence, not words, one that took away confusion by first creating it. And in that quiet understanding, the heart becomes lighter, even if the situation remains unchanged. This is why the distance confused you at first. It wasn't meant to make sense immediately. It was meant to slow you down, strip away illusions, and guide your heart back to its proper center. Not away from love, but away from attachment. And that realization changes everything. Love feels steady, even when circumstances shake. Attachment feels restless the moment something shifts. Many hearts confuse the two because they can feel similar in the beginning. Both can create warmth, longing, and emotional closeness. But when distance appears, their true nature is exposed. Love breathes through trust, while attachment suffocates without constant reassurance. Allah allows distance so the heart can finally tell the difference. Attachment needs presence to survive. It feeds on messages, attention, and validation. When those things are reduced, attachment panics and demands answers. It interprets silence as danger and space as loss. Love, however, does not rush to conclusions. It feels the absence, but it does not lose itself inside it. This contrast is not accidental. Allah reveals it so the heart understands what it was truly holding on to. Many people believe intensity is proof of love, but intensity often belongs to attachment, not love. Attachment clings tightly because it fears emptiness. Love holds gently because it trusts Allah with outcomes. When distance enters, intensity increases for attachment and deepens quietly for love. One becomes louder and more anxious. The other becomes calmer and more patient. Allah uses this moment to teach the heart discernment. Attachment places emotional weight on another human being. It expects them to provide peace, direction, and reassurance. Love does not burden people with that role. It knows only Allah can carry that responsibility. When distance removes access, attachment feels abandoned because its source of comfort is gone. Love turns inward and upward, seeking stability from Allah instead of people. There is also a difference in how love and attachment respond to uncertainty. Attachment demands clarity immediately. It cannot tolerate not knowing. Love accepts uncertainty with humility, understanding that not everything is meant to be revealed at once. Allah allows unanswered questions to show the heart where its patience truly comes from, whether it comes from faith or from fear. Attachment often disguises itself as devotion. It says, "I care deeply," but beneath that care is fear of losing control. Love says, "I care sincerely," and releases control to Allah. Distance strips away the disguise. It exposes whether the heart was surrendering or grasping. This exposure is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. When the heart is attached, distance feels like punishment. When the heart loves, distance feels like a test. The difference lies in intention. Attachment wants possession. Love wants what is right, even if it hurts. Allah allows distance to realign the heart with the correct intention, not to take love away, but to purify it. Some hearts realized during distance that they were afraid of being alone more than they were committed to loving properly. That realization can sting, but it is also freeing. Allah reveals this truth not to condemn, but to heal. He does not want love built on fear. He wants it built on faith. Love remains respectful even in separation. Attachment forgets boundaries when threatened. Distance reveals how the heart behaves when it does not get what it wants, whether it maintains dignity or collapses into desperation. Allah watches this not to judge harshly, but to guide gently. He wants the heart to grow in balance. Attachment measures worth by response. Love measures worth by intention. When messages slow or stop, attachment feels unvalued. Love remains secure because it knows its value does not come from another person's behavior. Allah uses distance to detach self-worth from external reactions. This is a crucial lesson for the heart. There is also peace hidden inside love that attachment never tastes. Attachment is constantly scanning for signs. Love is present even in absence. When distance stretches on, attachment exhausts itself. Love steadies itself. Allah allows time to pass, so this difference becomes undeniable. So the heart cannot lie to itself anymore. Attachment resists Allah's timing. It wants answers now. Love submits to Allah's wisdom, even when it hurts. Distance teaches submission in a way closeness never could. It removes the illusion of control and replaces it with reliance. This shift is subtle but powerful. Some hearts realize that what they feared losing was not the person, but the feeling they provided. That is attachment. Love is concerned with well-being, not emotional supply. Allah reveals this distinction, so the heart learns to love without consuming, to care without depending. Distance also shows how the heart speaks to Allah. Attachment complains, love confides. Attachment says, "Why is this happening to me?" Love says, "Teach me what this means." Allah listens to both, but He transforms the one that seeks understanding. Distance becomes a doorway to that transformation. When love is real, distance refines it. When attachment is present, distance exposes it. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. Allah does not want the heart confused about what it carries. He wants it certain, steady, and free. Over time, the heart begins to loosen its grip. It stops demanding outcomes and starts trusting direction. This is where attachment fades and love becomes lighter. Allah guides this process slowly, because sudden detachment can break a heart. Gradual distance teaches without destroying. The heart eventually understands that love does not require possession to be meaningful. It requires sincerity and alignment with Allah's will. Attachment learns this lesson the hard way. Love learns it with patience. Allah allows both experiences, so the heart chooses correctly. When this understanding settles, the heart feels less reactive, less desperate, less afraid. It begins to love in a healthier way, whether closeness returns or not. Distance has done its work. The heart now knows the difference it once confused. This is why Allah separates love from attachment through distance, not to remove what is pure, but to strip away what was weighing it down. What remains after this separation is calmer, stronger, and closer to Allah than before. And once the heart learns this distinction, it never loves the same way again. It loves with trust instead of fear, with surrender instead of control. And that is the kind of love Allah allows to endure. Allah does not always remove people suddenly. Sometimes He removes access slowly, almost gently, so the heart has time to awaken. You may still care, still remember, still feel connected in a quiet way, but the closeness is gone. The conversations that once flowed easily now feel distant or absent. This removal is not accidental. Allah controls access just as He controls outcomes, and when He limits one, it is always for a reason. When access is removed, the heart reacts before the mind understands. It reaches out instinctively, searching for familiarity and comfort. Attachment feels this loss sharply because it depended on access to feel secure. Love feels the absence too, but it does not unravel. Allah allows this moment so the heart reveals its true reliance, whether it leaned on a person or rested in Him. Access creates illusion. When someone is available, it can feel like stability, but availability is not the same as permanence. Allah removes access to show the heart that what it relied on was never guaranteed. This realization is painful, but it is also protective. Allah does not want your peace tied to something fragile and temporary. In the space created by removed access, emotions surface without distraction. There is no presence to soothe the heart, no reassurance to quiet the mind. This is where attachment becomes loud. It demands reconnection, explanations, and control. Love, on the other hand, turns inward and upward. It seeks grounding in Allah because it knows people cannot carry the weight of the heart. Allah removes access to test sincerity, not the sincerity of feelings, but the sincerity of trust. Do you still believe in His wisdom when what you want is no longer within reach? Do you still act with dignity when closeness is denied? Distance answers these questions honestly, without words. There is also a lesson in restraint, hidden inside removed access. The heart learns that not every emotion requires expression, not every longing requires action. Allah teaches the heart to sit with desire without letting it rule behavior. This discipline is essential for spiritual maturity. Without it, emotions become a form of control rather than a source of insight. When access is limited, self-respect becomes visible. Some hearts chase harder, hoping effort will restore closeness. Other hearts pause, choosing patience over pursuit. Allah watches this response carefully. He is not impressed by desperation. He is pleased by restraint, trust, and emotional balance. Removing access also protects the heart from idealizing what is absent. When people are constantly present, flaws can be ignored or excused. Distance creates space for reflection. It allows the heart to see clearly, without emotional pressure. Allah wants you to see reality, not illusion. And reality often requires space. Many hearts discover during this phase that they were more attached to consistency than to character. They miss the routine, not necessarily the person. Allah reveals this truth gently by disrupting patterns. When routines break, intentions are exposed. This exposure is not meant to hurt, but to correct. Access can sometimes delay growth. When comfort is available, the heart may avoid confronting its own weaknesses. Allah removes access so the heart learns self-regulation. It learns to calm itself, to turn to prayer instead of people, and to seek strength from faith rather than familiarity. There is also mercy in this removal. Allah knows how much closeness you can handle without losing yourself. When He sees attachment forming, He creates distance to protect your identity. He does not want you shrinking your world around one person. He wants your heart wide enough to hold purpose, faith, and balance. Silence that follows removed access is especially instructive. It teaches the heart to listen rather than react, to observe thoughts without acting on them, to let emotions pass without chasing relief. This silence trains patience in a way no lecture ever could. Over time, the heart notices a shift. The urge to reach out weakens. The panic softens. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. This is not because the heart stopped caring, but because it stopped depending. Allah has begun to recenter the heart where it belongs. Removed access also clarifies intention. If reconnection happens, it will be from a place of stability, not need. If it does not, the heart will still be whole. Allah prepares the heart for both outcomes, so neither destroys it. This preparation is a form of mercy, often mistaken for loss. Some hearts realize that access had become a substitute for trust in Allah. As long as someone was reachable, faith remained untested. Distance removes that substitute. It forces the heart to rely directly on Allah. This reliance deepens faith in a way closeness never could. There is dignity in accepting removed access without bitterness. It shows spiritual maturity. It shows trust in Allah's timing and wisdom. Allah honors hearts that maintain adab even when hurt. Such hearts are never truly deprived. even when they experience distance. The heart also learns that access does not equal permission. Just because someone was once close does not mean they are meant to remain so. Allah decides who has access to your heart and when. Accepting this truth brings peace, even when it is painful at first. As this lesson settles, the heart becomes quieter, less reactive, less demanding. It begins to feel a new kind of strength, one that does not depend on response or presence. This strength is subtle, but it is transformative. Allah builds it slowly, through space and silence. Eventually, the heart understands that removed access was not rejection, it was redirection. Allah was guiding the heart away from reliance and toward alignment. What felt like loss was actually recalibration. This is why Allah removes access before He removes people. He allows the heart to detach without breaking, to learn without collapsing, to grow without being destroyed. And when this lesson is complete, the heart stands firmer than it ever did in closeness. Distance has done its work quietly, and the heart, though changed, is now stronger, clearer, and more anchored in Allah than before. Distance has a way of uncovering truths the heart avoided when closeness was comfortable. When someone is near, emotions can blur awareness. Presence can soften discomfort and hide imbalance. But when distance appears, the heart is left alone with what it was truly relying on. This is when the real placement of the heart becomes visible, not through words, but through reaction. If distance shatters your inner peace, it often means the heart was leaning too heavily on creation. The pain feels unbearable not because love is gone, but because the source of stability has been disturbed. Allah allows this disturbance so the heart recognizes where it had placed its weight. A heart that leans entirely on Allah bends, but it does not break. Some hearts discover that their joy was tied to access, not to meaning. They felt alive when closeness was present and empty when it was removed. Distance reveals this dependency clearly. Allah does not want your emotional well-being tied to another human's availability. He wants your peace rooted in something unshakable. This realization may hurt, but it saves the heart from future collapse. When distance brings sadness without despair, it signals something different. It shows that love was present, but faith was stronger. The heart feels the loss of presence, yet it remains anchored. Allah allows distance to reveal this balance. Not all pain is unhealthy. Some pain coexists with trust and dignity. What angers you during distance is also revealing. If resentment grows, the heart may have felt entitled to closeness. If acceptance grows, the heart understands that Allah alone decides access. Distance strips away entitlement and replaces it with humility. This humility is not weakness, it is clarity. The heart also notices where its thoughts go in the absence of closeness. Do they spiral into fear, or do they turn toward reflection? Distance shows whether the heart seeks reassurance from people or from Allah. This observation is not meant to judge, but to guide. Allah reveals patterns so they can be corrected. Many hearts realize they were seeking completion from someone else. Distance exposes this quietly. The emptiness feels larger than the absence itself. Allah allows this feeling so the heart understands that no creation can complete it. Completion comes from alignment with Him, not from attachment to people. Distance also reveals how much control the heart wanted. When things were close, the illusion of control felt real. Distance removes that illusion. The heart is forced to surrender outcomes. Allah uses this moment to teach tawakkul, not as a concept, but as an experience. Trust learned through loss is deeper than trust learned through ease. If the heart feels restless during distance, it may be because it relied on constant stimulation. Messages, presence, and emotional exchange kept it occupied. Distance creates stillness. and in stillness, the heart hears itself clearly for the first time. Allah allows this quiet so the heart becomes self-aware. Some hearts notice that their identity felt threatened by distance. They defined themselves through connection. When that connection weakened, so did their sense of self. Allah reveals this gently to help the heart rebuild its identity around faith, purpose, and self-worth, rather than around another person. Distance also highlights whether the heart respects itself. Does it chase what withdraws, or does it maintain dignity? Allah watches this response closely, not to punish, but to elevate. Hearts that choose self-respect during distance grow stronger, even if it hurts. There is also a lesson in how the heart speaks about the situation. Does it speak with bitterness or with reflection? Language reveals internal alignment. Allah allows distance to refine not only emotions, but perspective. A heart aligned with Allah seeks meaning, not blame. Some hearts discover that what they called love was fear of being alone. Distance makes that fear loud. Allah allows it to surface so it can be healed. Fear-based attachment cannot sustain peace. It must be replaced with faith-based love. Distance does not accuse the heart. It informs it. It shows where attachment crept in unnoticed. It shows where trust weakened. Allah does not shame the heart for this. He corrects it gently, through awareness rather than punishment. As the heart understands these revelations, resistance softens. It stops fighting the distance and starts learning from it. This shift changes everything. What once felt like loss becomes insight. What felt like confusion becomes clarity. The heart begins to release the idea that closeness equals value. It understands that being chosen by Allah matters more than being chosen by people. This realization restores balance. Distance loses its power to destabilize. Over time, the heart becomes less reactive. It no longer measures peace by proximity. It measures peace by alignment. Allah has repositioned the heart, quietly and carefully. This repositioning is mercy. Allah removes what competes with Him inside the heart, even if it feels painful. He does this because He loves the heart more than it loves what was taken away. Distance reveals, but it also heals. By showing the heart where it was placed, Allah gives it the chance to move back to where it belongs, with Him. And once the heart returns to its proper place, distance no longer feels like loss. It feels like guidance that arrived disguised as separation. Before you move on from this, pause for a moment. If distance entered your life, it was not to empty you, it was to return your heart to its proper place. What Allah separates is never meant to destroy you. It is meant to free you. If something was real, distance will not erase it. And if it was attachment, distance has already begun to heal you. Either way, Allah has protected your heart from being owned by anything other than Him. So don't rush the outcome, don't chase clarity. Let this lesson finish its work. When your heart is aligned, Allah will either reunite what is written or remove what was never meant to stay without breaking you. Trust the one who created the distance, because when Allah is guiding your heart, nothing is ever taken without purpose.